Welcome back to PPCM's Painful Truth. Today's guest, Michaela Miller.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Hi.
Okay. Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for your time today and
I'm so excited.
educating me on your experience of peripartum cardiomyopathy, PPCM. Please introduce yourself and where are you from and what's part of the world?
So my name is Michaela Miller and I live in Dublin, Virginia. It's about 20 minutes from Virginia Tech.
Okay. And when were you first ever diagnosed with peripartum cardiomyopathy? At what age?
I was 27.
Oh gosh, yes, you were young. Was this your first pregnancy?
It was.
And at what point were you starting to feel like my body is just not responding to like my norm and I'm feeling just not right? At what point in your pregnancy did you start feeling that?
I didn't have any issues my whole pregnancy. I went in for an induction, and during the induction, I started swelling a little bit. I ended up having to have a C-section and really swelled after that. But when I asked the doctors when I was being discharged, they said it was just from the amount of fluid I got. And I ended up in the ER about 6 days after having my daughter, swollen up to my chest. At that point, I would take a shower and would have to sit down on the toilet and take a break before I could put my clothes on. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I thought it was normal C-section recovery, but ended up in the ER and they told me my heart was enlarged after they ruled out blood clots. And again, I was told, you probably just got too much fluid during your C-section.
Yeah, your story really hits home for me as well, because that's exactly what happened to me. I went from 105 to 200 pounds after giving birth. From my C-section, I just kept getting worse and worse and worse. I'm so sorry. Hold on a second. I'm so sorry. I have a puppy.
Oh, you're
Golden
good.
Retriever puppy. And yeah, he needs to go in his room. Okay, so I experienced the swelling. It was just so it exasperated so much worse after my C-section. Mm-hmm. I was never diagnosed even at that point. I went to the ER. Did you have an infection by chance? Did you have a fever?
Nope.
Did you have what did they do with the fluid? Did they drain you, and how much fluid did they end up like having to treat?
So when I went to the ER, they gave me a prescription for Lasix and sent me home and said, we'll set you up with a cardiology appointment to have an echo just to double check. And I probably lost 20 pounds in about a week and a half. Mm-hmm. I have pictures, like the swelling in my feet. The difference in a week was insane.
Oh yeah, I would love to see the photos. Please message me them. I would love to include that. Because I believe photos say it all, They really do. I mean, that's why, some people never show signs. You could just see it on me. I couldn't believe that the doctors just didn't, and during your pregnancy, your birthing professional, were they aware of peripartum cardiomyopathy, PPCM?
I honestly don't think so. Like I said, I didn't have any issues my whole pregnancy. It wasn't until right at delivery. But even at my 6-week follow-up appointment, I asked the midwife I see about other pregnancies. And at that point, I had had an echo. We knew I was in heart failure. And she still told me, you just got too much fluid during your C-section. And I'm like, that's not true at this point.
Yeah, well, what it is that the fluid, it's not a heart problem until the fluid is crushing it and suffocating us until death. So basically, they weren't listening to you
No.
or your symptoms, and they weren't giving you the proper blood tests to be
So
able
I
to.
got lucky. The doctor who did my C-section, I went for an appointment 6 days post C-section to have my incision checked. And now I didn't see him at all during my pregnancy. He just happened to be the doctor on call.
Mhm.
And because my blood pressure was high and I was swollen, he's the one that sent me to the ER to be checked.
Wonderful. What doctor was he?
His name is Dr. Colby.
Okay, Dr. Colby in Virginia.
Yeah. So he communicated with the ER doctors, and he's actually the one that sent in the referral for me to have the echo.
So he saved your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I mean, he held my hand while I bawled in his office because he was telling me I needed to go to the ER. And I mean, he was just amazing.
Wonderful. I love hearing that when a medical professional is like, really cares.
Yeah.
And listened and took the steps that needed to happen to get you the proper health care and treatment that you needed at the time. Do you know how they treated you? Do you know what they did? Like, did they use a magnesium drip? Like, how did they care for you?
You mean after diagnosis?
Yes.
So I had the echo and it came back. My ejection fraction was 30 to 35%. Mm-hmm. So I was set up with a cardiologist, and he started me on Lasix, and a couple other meds. And he's like, we'll just play it by ear and see how you do. He's dealt with this before, and he's like, typically it's a pretty quick recovery.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you're treated, it is a quick recovery, which is why there's no excuse, and it's unacceptable for a woman to be, not treated for something like this and to suffer until her life is at threat, because you can recover, and you can recover fully and have a very long life. Yes. Just as you were healthy prior to the pregnancy-induced fluid that suffocates your heart and that enlarged your heart, as you said. And so I know what that feels like too. I also have a high tolerance for pain, and I feel like you probably have that as well, because with the C-section and everything, there are symptoms that probably started for you probably around like 8 months pregnant, right towards like the end, like you said, right? So if there was proper screening, labs, and testings that were mandatory, it would have caught it, maybe even like sooner. So were all your tests prior to being diagnosed as peripartum cardiomyopathy, were your pregnancy testings coming back normal, or was there any indication?
No, like I said, I had a completely normal pregnancy. I was overdue and still working in a busy ER waiting for my induction date. So I didn't have any symptoms prior to going in for my induction. It was that right there, the 41-week mark, I started just ballooning.
Interesting. It's actually a very informative information, because that makes it even more so that the NT-proBNP test should be mandatory. Because if you had a, pretty, thank goodness, blessings and miracles, you didn't feel the pain of the peripartum cardiomyopathy developing, and it just kind of hit you like a wall, but you were blessed with that. But at the same time, it makes me think it should be more so mandatory because you had a healthy pregnancy. Yeah. So let's say if you weren't treated 3 to 6 months down the road, untreated, that could have been a life threat. Very much so.
100%.
And how is your EF percent today?
So my last echo, I was still at 30 to 35%. I had actually dropped. I was diagnosed in September, and then that Thanksgiving, I ended up admitted in the hospital with an exacerbation, and my EF had dropped to 20 to 25%. And then this past June, when I had an echo, I was back up to 30 to 35%.
So what year did you give birth?
2020.
And this was during COVID.
Yes. So that was a big thing. I started having all this shortness of breath, and I messaged a friend that I work with who had had a C-section a month before me. And I was like, hey, did you have shortness of breath when you got home from the hospital? And she's like, no, that's not normal. You should get checked out. And part of me didn't want to go get checked out because I was terrified. It was COVID, and I didn't want to be separated from my newborn or deal with any of that. So, you know, the paranoia of COVID kind of made me brush off the symptoms.
Absolutely. I hear that as well. So being challenged by, you know, this disease during pregnancy, after pregnancy, now we have another challenge to fight for women and our children's children to, you know, I think be able to know when their body is not feeling well and to really not just speak up, but demand, you know, some sort of
excuse me,
testings. And if this blood test doesn't work, try another blood test. If this blood test doesn't work, try another blood test. Just don't send her home, you know, that is just, you know, undiagnosed. And that's what happens. So are you aware of the NT-proBNP test?
Mm-hmm.
Did you know when your EF percent was in, like, would you say 20? You said your EF percent was like 25?
Yeah, 20 to 25.
And what was your BNP number?
It was almost 3,000.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And so being that high, your number, because it was the NT-Pro, which means any number, you know, above 300 is, you know, definitely needs to be treated. What did they do to treat you? How did they treat you?
So I was admitted to the hospital. I was put on BiPAP and given nitro paste because I was breathing so hard. And then I was on IV Lasix for a couple of days. We found out I don't respond to oral Lasix well.
Okay.
I would take it daily, and I didn't get rid of fluid, so they had to switch me to torsemide. But yeah, IV Lasix for a couple of days to get that fluid off. And I lost just in that 3-day hospital stay, probably another 20 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. That's how I felt. Go ahead. Yeah. When fluid comes off of you and it's like, you know, I had over 40 pounds of fluid off of me. I was like, my knees, my body. I was like,
Yeah.
me. You know, a little bit, my face, you know, one photo, it's like huge. And I'm like, that's not me. And then after the cardiac arrest and then my hyperthermic coma, when I finally woke up, I took a photo and it's like my baby, he hasn't changed. He was still 3 months. I'm holding him when I had my cardiac, in a photo, which I don't even know why I was smiling. I was dying, but I'm holding him and that night I had my cardiac arrests and my heart stopped and then hyperthermia coma. And then when I woke up, I came home from the hospital and I remember holding him just like how I was, like wherever I was holding him by the side of a pool. And I looked at him and I just had this moment where, because I had like no memory, like prior to, you know, I was like almost as if I was walking of the dead, you know, like half my soul being was already merged with my soul spirit, you know, and it was like I remember seeing my baby, and I took a photo and I put them next to each other, and it was only like not even 12 days apart. And I was so big, I was so swollen.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say removing 20 pounds off of you, it's like, that's fluid that is suffocating and enlarging your heart.
Mm-hmm.
So your heart was perfect and fine until the fluid started crushing you. And me and all peripartum cardiomyopathy women that are mainly diagnosed as preeclampsia. So, and it's the same treatment. So it should be kind of under the same umbrella a little bit. I don't know why they're kind of different. So at this point, when you didn't want to call because of the fact that you, COVID and everything, how was it that you were able to manage through COVID and being diagnosed with peripartum cardiomyopathy?
I mean, honestly, it was really tough. Like I had never heard of it. I'm a nurse. Most of my coworkers had never heard of it. So it was honestly a huge blow. I was dealing with a newborn, depression, anxiety, not being able to go out, go anywhere, see a lot of my friends, see family because of COVID, dealing with the stress of a newborn, and then being diagnosed with heart failure and really struggling to complete, you know, my daily activities because I felt so horrible.
Yeah. And that's, I think we're, you know, it's almost as if like the grieving with kind of like the daily life routine that once was and no longer is also a transition with being a new mom, and the worry and the fear and the depression that comes with it. Whereas I'm a really, you know, I'm a huge mental health advocate. I have my master's in social work. I went to school for 8 years because as a triage specialist, because I believe in mental health and I believe in the process of the stages of whatever the trauma of going through. And I believe that once you gain, you know, the awareness, just like the awareness for peripartum cardiomyopathy and the preventions, it's almost like the awareness behind the depression that comes along with it and how to meet yourself at that level. And sometimes, you know, chemically, it's impossible. You know, it's chemical, and we're lucky to have the medication. I'm blessed for it. But the level of conditioning the mind can also calm the heart. When you say, you know, I'm feeling overwhelmed because we have subconscious anxiety at this point because of of a trauma thought. It's almost like, okay, well, what do you do at that moment? And it does become a depression. Now that depression can turn into a disease if not treated. Same with any part of our heart or body. If something's not treated, it can turn into something more. And that is something that I feel really needs to be like as a package deal.
Yeah.
Because there's no way women, like I relate to you and your situation so much. I know there's not many people that can, you know, and a lot of people shy away from something that's not joyful. And it's hard being around other women, especially, you know, that just can't like relate with something that is life and death. And it's scary.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely the like people relating to what you're going through, you know, I'm young. And a lot of my friends don't have kids yet. So that was a big adjustment. And then dealing with this they'd be like, oh, let's go out for Mexican and drinks. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like, my body cannot handle that. Or they would ask to do things, and that sense of normalcy that they have, I don't have anymore.
I can relate with that as well. Very, like, almost like a shot back memory. I couldn't believe it wasn't like ignorance, but it was just like the lack of, I don't know, of knowing what I was going through, when I was asked, hey, let's go, we have a show, and it's like, I get it. It's very, it's a life adjustment. Mm-hmm. It's a complete life change. Our perceptions are completely different. This disease changes the dynamic of, wow, it really puts life in perspective. Yeah. And you also start to see things that are not, like, for me, like, ketchup on a white couch is not a problem to me. Heart failure, my heart stopping and me not being available for my baby is a problem. Yeah. You kind of know that you just, it's a total mind switch. Yes. Everything is a mind switch.
Yes. Like, I have, some friends who come to me and they're like really upset over something that happened at work. And I'm like, why do you let that bother you? It's so insignificant.
Exactly. I mean, there's really, it really, like, the big picture really comes into play here when you see that, you as a nurse, and that, women have been dying since the beginning of time, and there are preventions as early as 10 weeks pregnant. So the fact that the standards of raising the care and health for women during pregnancy and is not willing, I think, is why we're talking today, and we're coming forward and saying, I think your story is interesting. Your PPCM story is interesting because you had like a normal pregnancy, mm-hmm. and then it just kind of, bam, it hit you. And that, to me, it's like, I know that this NT-proBNP test should be mandatory regardless, but like even now more so, because it just shows you that even somebody who is young, who would never think of mortality, let alone maternal mortality, could happen to you because you were healthy. There's no reason for this to happen, but it was induced. So, and, really there's only, you were also lucky to have such an amazing doctor that caught it.
Yeah.
And knew you.
As far as providers, like, I've been so lucky. My cardiologist here, awesome. Like, I didn't start improving. So he set me up with Duke University with a heart failure specialist down there, so I could get a second opinion and make sure we were doing what needed to be done to treat me. That's
amazing. That's so that you have such a great care team. And I wish all women, like, where are you again? In what?
In Dublin, Virginia.
Okay. And what is the hospital that is like just so wonderful?
Carillion Clinic.
Carillion?
Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, I just think that there should be always like recognition for, literally just, not just using a textbook, or the handbook or whatever book, and actually use a little bit of common sense with, possible intuition to take into care, You know, a good doctor is not like what degree they have or from where. A good doctor is a doctor who actually cares, and your team really cares. And that is so refreshing.
I've been really blessed with, you know, my doctor here and my doctor at Duke. Like they've worked with me when my meds don't agree with me and I'm dizzy, or just really any questions. They've been available and they've done their best to make sure that, you know, functionally I feel good and that I have a good quality of life, even if my ejection fraction is not normal.
Yeah. And, you know, there are things that can actually help. I went from a 10% to a 64.
Oh, wow.
Stable. There are things that you can do. Like, so I know that you're in Virginia and everything, but I'm sure that there are like, I don't know if you have it at home or like an indoor pool, like, or something like that, like a rec place. And what I was doing at the time, I was living in West Hollywood, and they have an aquatic pool. And I mean, now I have my own pool, but at the time when I lived there, I used the city, and I just started to walk back and forth in the low end, in the shallow end. And I just like would walk, and I would always carry my foam weights, because foam weights, you float, and it's less on the heart. It's less on the body. So you always carry the foam weights. And then I would get a little bit better. And I would then start swimming and going, you know, backwards and forward. And then I started realizing like I was breathing better and I was feeling better. Like I just felt like great. And then I started to do the water aerobics with like the elderly people, because I was like, because they were doing it and I'm here on the side, and I'm like, oh, and then I ended up just kind of doing it with them. Let me tell you, it was such a great workout, and it was so healthy for me that I went from a 10, and then I was up to like a 30, and then I was like, okay, I'm doing something right. And it's like less impact on my feet and my back, because I kidney failure, like, you know, so I had a lot of uncomfortability in my body, and just being in the water and just moving in the water, it was like gravity was just like working with me. Right. And it was working with my breathing, and I take my moments, and now I'm like swimming back and forth, and I'm going under, and I'm diving in, and I'm now back to being healthy. So I think the water really helped me progress. And I feel like there should be some sort of like pregnancy water with a baby, like prepare for your, you know, baby's birthday, and like do some sort of, it's less impact on the ankles and back and feet, and get the heart, you know, prepare the heart for the event of giving birth. There should be some sort of like, you know, preparation. But there's definitely like yoga, you know, things that can really, you know, help bring your EF percent up. But you also have to work with it and like,
yeah. Well, you know, prior to giving birth, like I was still going to Zumba.
Awesome.
Me and my big, huge baby belly, we were doing Zumba, doing weightlifting. And then all this happened. I did do some cardiac rehab, and it's given me, you know, the confidence that if I work out, I'm not going to, you know, keel over. So I stopped that, and I started working out at home and doing some weightlifting and some cardio, you know, just at home. But that's really helped my quality of life.
Absolutely. I mean, I love it. Like yesterday, I got my mat out. I have my bar, I got my ball, I got my magic circle, I got my little weights, and I do my breathing, my stretching, and I always feel better afterwards, and my breathing, and you know, I had that defibrillator in me, and my veins, I don't know if you can see, but they're really bad, and getting the blood pumping and getting it through will be just it will get you the energy through the days, and also help the depression.
I ended up with a defibrillator too, and it really helps when I work out. Like, I know if something happens, I'm good to go.
Yeah. Is it still in there?
Yeah, I had it put in at the end of June.
Okay, well, do you need like a cortisone shot?
I think I do need something. I keloid and it's still pretty puffy.
Yeah, just get a, that's how mine was for a little while. You need to get a cortisone shot in it, and then it will just take down the inflammation and it will go away. I was actually allergic to the defibrillator, to the components and the metals. So mine is now removed. They removed it. I was allergic to like 11 of the components in the device.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Yeah.
Yeah. My mom had one. She had the dual defibrillator pacemaker, and her leads actually frayed inside of her. So she had to have the battery pack removed.
Oh, gosh. How scary.
Yeah.
Very scary. Well, you're definitely a warrior survivor, and I really appreciate your time. And I know that it's your baby's probably now like 2 or
she's 16 months.
She's 16 months. So,
yeah.
You know, you do have a journey, and please send me photos that I can attach to our interview today. And that would be, helpful. Like I said, my photos say it all. And
yeah, I think have some that really, speak for what's going on. Did you have any genetic testing done?
I did. Actually, it's funny that you just said that. I'm actually scheduled for a genetic testing. My grandfather had cardiomyopathy. My cousin had cardiomyopathy. My mom was born with a heart murmur. My other grandmother died of heart. So I believe that there's genetic. But I've never had a heart problem in my life, and I've been a dancer and like a yoga goer and a gym goer, and I would run Runyon Canyon sometimes even twice. An active career. Working on movies and television in the motion picture in Hollywood for over 18 years. And, I'm up at like 3 a.m, sometimes getting home, and then doing it again, sometimes working 2 shows. I mean, there's no reason for this to have happened to me, to have my times of death called. And that's why I feel like, if it can happen to me, then it can happen to, any woman. Like you said, you're young, you went to Zoom classes, there's no reason for this to have happened, but it did. And now you have a defibrillator, and you have, these things that you have to follow up with that you didn't have. And so with you coming forward really educates a lot of women, a lot of young.
Well, that's what I'm hoping.
Absolutely. Because this is why, you stepping up and forward is, it's one thing when you don't have any symptoms, and then this hits, and now you have, this complication, and it's really, you're speaking for all young women, because this is a young woman disease. And like, you would have never thought that maternal mortality could happen to you. No. So speaking up will create change. This will make a difference, and it will save lives, because a young woman is probably watching this pregnant and is like, I, don't feel anything. This is scary, but I am a smart enough woman to not take education as fearful, but just to have the awareness. So so this doesn't happen to me,
right?
Because that's where it needs to internalize, where women don't think of this as, oh gosh, like I don't feel anything. This is not going to happen to me. You know, no, it can happen to you. But if you don't know and your doctor doesn't know, it could be a life threat. So it's not like, oh, you're going to die if you don't know, but it kind of is. It's a life and death information. So you would want to know, not to scare you, but just to know, like, know your number, know your BNP number. Can't hurt. It's like, can only just, if anything, give reassurance. Oh, okay, my BNP is 25, it's 47, I'm good, you know, whatever. As long as I'm below 99 or, you know, with the BNP and NT Pro 300, as long as you're in that number range, you're good. Why wouldn't people just want to know? Good, even if you're healthy, even if you feel good, even if you feel like you have a healthy pregnancy, it still should be mandatory to know your NT Pro BNP test number because of your example. You're young, you went to Zoom, you're healthy, and it peaked after C-section because with fluid comes infection, and that's what happened with you. The fluid caused an infection, and you did have an infection in your body, which is why you were experiencing heart failure. So really the infection is what needs to be, you know, whether it's drained out of your body, you know, like they did, or however, you know, when they removed all that fluid out of you and then they cured your infection that was creating all that fluid, that's the treatment. That's the prevention right there. And you're here to live to say that treatment and recovery is possible if you are treated.
Yeah.
So thank you for your time and speaking up.
Well, thank you.
And sharing that. It was very, very, very informative. I love this interview because, you know, you just never know, you know, what someone's experience really truly is. And I think yours is very, you know, very much of an impact on just awareness.
Well, thank you. That's what I'm hoping for. You know, if we can get these tests done and have people not get to the point where they have a cardiac arrest or they're hospitalized for days at a time away from their kids, like, I mean, it would make such a huge difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it only takes just to be open and willingness to learn about the BNP and how a simple blood test can really, you know, determine whether or not you're okay or determine whether or not, hey, you might need treatment, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong. It's like with mental health. There's nothing wrong with having the awareness to meet your body and your health at its level that it is trying to, whether it's, you know, condition itself to maybe, you know, heal, or like with you, you know, I would love to see your EF percent past, you know, 55, you know, which is so possible. You went to Zoom. I mean, that's really good cardio, you know. Just so you know, my heart rate was at 10%, my EF, and I did struggle. And I was doing at equinox afterwards, I would like hit it. I would hit rock and model body workout. I do my 60-minute class. Then I go for like a run. Then I go for a yoga. I mean, this is after. Swim. Anytime my son would go, let's go swimming. You know, he's 5. He's a great swimmer. I mean, and it's important. It's a very big necessity for a child to know how to swim. So, but he was like my partner, you know, so it's like, I am very much of a health nut. And if your heart rate was in its 60s, you don't be afraid. Know your body. like you say, you know how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
You know when to push and when not to. You know, like I was taking my dog up for, quite a bit of a hike, and he was pulling me, and I was trying my hardest, and I was like, shit, like, cause I usually can, like, understand, I was so healthy. Like I was, like, I used to run Runyon Canyon over and over again. I was very healthy. And he was like pulling me, and I was like, man, I'm like, I got to get up there again. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it does take me back where I'm like, I'm not what I was, and I'm not going to push it either. So as he's pulling me, I'm pulling him back. I'm like, I'm not there. The old me, the Lindsay, would have been darting right up there and like surpassing him, like, because I just always been, healthy basketball player, like dancer, like yoga, like running. I mean, and to have that taken from me all because of lack of awareness during pregnancy is just so beyond words of frustrating. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Like, I feel like I missed out on a lot of things with my daughter just because of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's tough, but the important thing is I'm here now and making the most of what I can.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And who would you say is your biggest support person through all of this?
Definitely my husband. My parents have been super supportive as well. My mom has heart failure as well. So, she knows what I'm going through. She wasn't as young as me when she was diagnosed, but she still was pretty young. I had the genetic testing done, and I do have a gene mutation that makes me more prone to cardiomyopathies. So we feel confident that she has that same gene mutation, even though she hasn't been tested. But, they've been great. And my husband, we had a 6-day-old, and he had to keep her for 6 hours. And, she was breastfed. We didn't have any milk saved. So he had to deal with that. And then, when I got put in the hospital, it was for 2 nights, 3 days. He had to deal with a 3-month-old who, again, breastfed, didn't have mom. And he's had to do that a couple of times when I've been hospitalized or when I've had the defibrillator put in. I was in the hospital overnight. And he's taken everything with stride. He's taken off work to take me to all my appointments. He makes sure, like, he measures my coffee out every morning, so he knows exactly how many ounces I'm getting since I'm on a fluid restriction.
My husband made me my coffee. I was like, wow, like I know it's the same. They're wonderful when they are. When they're just so supportive. It's so funny you said that with the coffee. He handed it to me, but yeah, it's that's wonderful that that he's so attentive, but I'm sure that he's had quite a scare himself.
He has, and he's, not shown any of that fear to me because he knew I needed him to be strong. But he's had conversations with my dad because my dad has gone through the same thing with my mom being sick. She's had heart failure, cancer. I mean, a slew of things where we didn't think she was going to make it. So my dad has been in his shoes. So, he's been able to provide that support to my husband, and he's been able to let that fear and stuff out with my dad, but he's not shown any of that with me because he knew I needed a rock.
He's wonderful. Yeah.
He really is.
That's wonderful. And I love that, I'm sure, once you're recovered, I mean, it hasn't even been, it does take time. And, I'm sure, there'll be a balance. You'll be there when he needs you. It goes hand in hand, my husband was like that too. He was just wonderful and loving and good with the baby and just not really being my rock, he did do an interview, and it was the first time I think I ever really heard him, and it crushed me because, it just made me feel like, gosh, like, it's one thing to experience, but it's another to watch and then have the fear and internalizing that as a man. It's like, yeah, they can be all, supportive and like strong, but they were babies once. I have a little son, and, I love him. They were, it's a very sad disease because it does affect the men as well. And it's the good ones too, that are, it could have been prevented. And that's where also the frustration comes in. I mean, there are layers of different scenarios or people that are involved, and everyone has play a part in this disease of this worry. So yeah. And is there anything that you would like to share as a viewer is watching this that could maybe possibly give some insight? Anything else?
I mean, I guess the big thing is, as bleak as it seems, don't give up. Just take it day by day. Enjoy every moment of every day. I mean, enjoy every moment with your kid, with your family, with your husband, your spouse, whoever.
Yeah, bottle up the good memories.
Yes. As tough as it is, try not to let this completely consume you. I did that for a while and went to, a really dark place, and it's hard to dig yourself out of that hole, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. And I think that once you find some like justice, it becomes a little easier with accepting. I think that's what it is. It's more like accepting that this happened and just moving forward and doing the best that you can. And for the viewers out here that have never heard of peripartum cardiomyopathy, what would you like to say to them that are watching this?
It exists. Your friends that are diagnosed, they're not, making this up about how bad they feel or being over dramatic. That was something I struggled with, was feeling like I was complaining too much, or that I shouldn't be feeling as bad. Like I should just toughen up and push through
death, push through maternal mortality.
Yes. Hey. And, just be aware of the symptoms and keep an eye on your pregnant friends. I mean, if somebody who's not dealt with this watches this and they see a friend who's swelling and having symptoms, like, you could save a life.
Absolutely. Well, and these conversations will save lives because it is real. This is real. And it is more common than rare. It's just rare for unheard of, even as a nurse, as you say. So, we're doing good. We're doing the best we can, getting the word out there, spreading the awareness, and hopefully creating real change within this pregnancy movement by, sharing experiences, especially yours with having no symptoms and then all of a sudden it hitting it like a wall, and then now you have a defibrillator and challenged with all of these new things and the loss of the spending time with your baby girl. But also, pushing forward, moving forward is like way easier said than done. This is a so life this is a life endless conundrum. I feel like it's perplexed. It's because it's so unheard of and unknown. And so no, thank you for coming forward, showing up, giving me your time today, and really trying to make real change for
Well,
this
thank
very
you for
real
having
disease.
me. I'm so glad you're doing this project.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll make it happen one woman at a time. So together. Thank you. And I look forward to keeping in touch with your journey. And we could do a follow-up, conversation on your health with, within the year, like how, like if you, what you can do or what you have done when you hopefully come on to say that your heart rate is, hopefully at like 55, or 60, I have really good faith that you can get there because you were there prior and you could fully recover. But you have to work with it. Even if it's like, sitting like, in an Indian style, like just pushing your chest up and holding your chest back and like taking that breath and like, doing stretches and, straddling your legs and breathing as you stretch. I mean, all of that is very important part of our mental health. But like I say, we're all connected, and the mind can heal the heart and the heart can heal the mind. So it's a workout. It's definitely a workout to keep it balanced. And, many blessings to you and your family,
you too.
for 2022 and
thank you.
And beyond. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
You too.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us and listening to the PPCM Fund podcast. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. PPCM's Painful Truth is made possible through the generous support of donors like you. Help us spread the awareness by donating at ppcmfund.com or click the link below to become a member through Ko-fi. Also, remember to join us every Monday and Friday for Mom Day Fitness. Have a great day.